Alrighty, welcome back everyone. We just talked about some of the media days coming up and particularly the Big 12 and how it's going to be a few very active days out in Las Vegas, and we'll learn a lot about this upcoming conference that has a lot of ers and ahs, and I absolutely love it going into this season. But let's start to break down Oregon and how there is a powerhouse forming before our eyes. I couldn't find the words there, but this is obviously a big topic of conversation in college football right now. Oregon is everything right now. They are dominating on the recruiting trail. They are going into the season, into the Big Ten with all the aspirations in the world to win a national title, to win the Big 12 in their first year, and to kind of take over in some aspects. So obviously a lot riding on this year, but how are they pulling all this off? What happened out in Oregon that kind of changed everything? And the biggest thing that you can point to and say confidently that is where a lot of this stuff started happening is when that guy got hired. Dan Lanning has totally flipped this thing on its head. And it's not to say Mario Cristobal and the last staff didn't do an incredible job out there, because they really did. They had a number of years that were really impressive, got to the Pac-12 championship a couple of times, did some really good things. Dan Lanning is building something different. He's not building a Pac-12 powerhouse. He is building an SEC or a Big Ten powerhouse, and he was doing it before Oregon even made the jump to the Big Ten. That was the difference. The second that he walked in the door, everything was just a little bit different. The intensity in the recruiting world was just a little bit higher, and they were going after kids that frankly, Oregon in the past just didn't go after as aggressively as Dan Lanning has. And some of that comes with, being under Nick Saban and Kirby Smart in the past. Some of that comes with just the crazy confidence that this guy has in his program and his players. So I do think that is the big thing that happened. Obviously, this is a fantastic head coach. I could easily argue top 5 head coach in the country right now. And that might just go up this year because they're just doing incredible things. And I think one of the biggest things is the recruiting that they're doing is just ridiculous. It's off the charts. They're currently number 5 in the recruiting rankings according to 247 Sports. And I expect them to jump up as the month goes on. I think there's still guys out there. DJ Pickett, the number 1 cornerback in the country. Michael Terry, the number 1 athlete in the country. They're kind of fighting Texas for him, which will be a very interesting fight because they just won a fight against Texas with DeCorian Moore. And then you also have Jonah Williams, a very talented safety, and Trey McNutt, the other very talented safety in this class. Both tend to be leaning towards Oregon. So just ridiculous what they're doing on the trail right now. It's absolutely insane, and a lot of people will point to NIL. A lot of people will point to the amount of money they have in their back pocket with the relationship they have with Nike, and that's the reality. There's no one kind of dodging that. The NIL absolutely is playing a part in what they're doing out there. They're also just out recruiting people. I talked about it a little bit yesterday when we talked about DeCorian Moore. They just had a better pitch than Texas did. And DeCorian Moore responded to that pitch a little bit better than he did to Texas. And I saw some of the numbers being thrown around about DeCorian Moore and what he got in NIL. I don't buy any of that, to be totally honest with you. I think Oregon just out-recruited them. And I think one of the big reasons for that was a hire that they made here pretty recently. And I think this is a guy that is going to be a huge riser in this industry and someone that you're going to want to know here pretty soon, and that's Rashad Samples. This is an absolutely huge hire by Dan Lanning this past cycle. When Carlos Loughlin found his way over to Ohio State to be the running back coach, he brought in Rashad Samples. Rashad Samples was a wide receiver coach down at Arizona State prior to this, so a very interesting hire. There's no two ways about that, but when you see what this guy can do on the recruiting trail, it gets a lot different a lot quicker. This guy is absolutely incredible. And one of the big things here is DeCorian Moore was the big-time pickup for Oregon this past week and has been it's the biggest commitment they've ever had at that university. So obviously was huge for them. Rashad Samples' dad is the head coach of DeCorian Moore's high school, Duncanville. He's a legendary high school football coach down in Texas, and that's got to help. There's no two ways about that. So obviously Dan Lanning knows exactly what he's doing. He is executing a vision, and he's executing it just remarkably well. So I do think there is a energy around Oregon that just hasn't really been there in the past, and there's this one big reason that sometimes gets a little bit overlooked to a certain extent, but also is just wildly important to any program being as successful as Oregon has been the last little bit, and that's just everyone being in alignment, everyone understanding that this is the time for them to take that next step, for Oregon to jump into the next echelon of college football. And one of the big things that happened when NIL and the portal and all of this stuff was introduced to college football was there were a couple of teams that we circled. There were a couple of teams that we felt like had that ability to really take advantage of the portal, of NIL, of all the things that were happening in the sport. Oregon was definitely on that list. Texas was definitely on that list. They've both done an incredible job utilizing both of those things and making them just that little bit better, taking them up to that next level. And obviously, Texas taking them up a couple of levels over the last couple of years. And then you have a couple of teams that you circled in the past that haven't done that. USC being the main one that I'm thinking about because they should be better than they are right now. The NIL, everything should be in a better place than it is right now. And I think it's because of the alignment behind the scenes. It's just not working. The communication between Lincoln Riley and the AD and the president and the boosters, there's a disconnect somewhere. And they better hurry up. I'll talk about this a little bit more later, but they better hurry up because Oregon is really cooking right now. But we talked about the staff. We talked about Rashad Samples and just how incredible he's been. He's been at 4 places in 4 years, and it's not necessarily because he keeps getting kicked out of places. It's because he keeps getting promotions and better opportunities to go after. So obviously he's going to be a very interesting guy over the next couple of years, but Junior Adams deserves all the respect in the world as well. This guy has done incredible things with this wide receiver room since he's shown up as the wide receiver coach, from evaluating talent in the portal and in high school to development. All of it's off the charts. It's just incredible to watch guys like Tez Johnson take that next step. It's just incredible. I mean, going out and getting a guy like Evan Stewart from Texas was not going to be an easy thing to do, and they were able to pull that off. Absolutely huge for them. So I think this is a guy that is going to be another quick riser in this industry, could be a guy that maybe takes over some play calling duties after Will Stein gets that big time job, because Will Stein and Tosh Lupoy are remarkable coordinators, and I would be shocked if they weren't head coaches at some point in the next 3 to 5 years. I think both those guys are just out of this world incredible, and I think if Oregon does what I expect them to do, they're going to be more than fine. There's no two ways about that. You also have Alik Terry, the O-line coach, came in last year, did a really good job with that O-line, even though there was some holes here and there. So obviously will be a lot better this upcoming year. Drew Mehringer is a very, very talented guy, very experienced, was the wide receiver coach at Texas back in the day when Tom Herman was there, has made the move over to tight end and is a fantastic recruiter and has done a great job out there. Chris Hampton, the co-DC and DB's coach, was the Tulane DC during that magical run that ended in a Cotton Bowl win over USC. So they're doing an incredible job of building out this group. Tony Tuiti is a fantastic D-line coach that I think is only going to get better as this team gets better, but a lot of stuff is going in the right direction for Oregon, on the field, off the field, behind the scenes. Everything is working perfectly, and it's really a testament to that guy. I can't talk about Dan Lanning enough, if I'm being totally honest. The dude walked into a situation at a very, very big university with a situation that not everyone would handle perfectly, and has just rolled from start to finish. He's just been absolutely incredible. The only blip on his radar really is those 2 losses to Washington a year ago, and then just getting absolutely blown out in his first game against Georgia. So if those are the only 2 blips on him, that's more than fine, to be totally honest with you. This is a very, very talented head coach, and everything at Oregon is just that little bit different. They're a little bit tougher. They're a little bit meaner. They play with a little bit more aggression than everyone around them, and it's prepared them for this moment where they're walking into the Big Ten not worried about the physicality, not worried about their guys not being able to just line up and go 11 on 11 with the guys in front of them, because he has tons of dudes just across the board. So I think this has been one of the more impressive coaching jobs over the last couple of years. He came into a situation that I'm not going to sit here and act like it was a dumpster fire by any means. There was a lot there at Oregon that was very, very nice for him because Mario and company were really good at recruiting, but he's taken it up a notch. And that last 5 or 10% to get to that elite level is the hardest 5 or 10%. There's no two ways about that. So Oregon has a chance this year to just kick the door down, win the Big Ten, go to the playoff, possibly win a national title, and then things get really interesting out there. Because if you think they're a force in recruiting now, if they get a national championship under their belt, I don't know if there's any stopping them. I'll be totally honest with you. They are absolutely going to roll over people in the recruiting world, because that's really the only thing that's been missing from up there for quite some time, is consistent winning seasons that puts you at the top of college football. If you can get that going forward, you're going to have no problem up there in Oregon. And I think you might just be able to find yourself into that group of the Georgia, Alabama, Ohio State groups going forward. I think also Texas is another team that absolutely could make their way up into that grouping, because the sport is coming towards them, and they grabbed it with both hands and have not let go. That's for sure. So Oregon, overall, the biggest thing here is just everything's in place. There's not a thing at that university that feels rickety. There's not a bolt that's a little bit loose. Everything is exactly the way that it needs to be for them to be elite. And they have the head guy that is willing to do all of the things you need to do. And he learned it from the two best that I've ever seen do it, and Nick Saban and Kirby Smart. And I know that sounds a little bit crazy about Kirby Smart. I'm being honest. I've never seen anyone do what Kirby Smart is doing, other than Nick Saban, obviously, because he did everything. But right now, you just be hard-pressed to find a program that is working at a higher level than the Oregon Ducks. It's absolutely incredible, and it's a scary sight for pretty much every Big Ten fan and every fan in college football across the country, because this is a scary team. And it's a team that the potential has always been there to be one of the dominant teams in college football. They're realizing that, and it's getting very real very fast, that's for sure. But we'll break that down more and more as the season goes on. But we're going to take our second break here, and when we come back, we're going to get back into some talking points around the Big Ten. Didn't quite get through what I wanted to in this yesterday, so I want to break that down today, and we'll do that right after this break, so stick with us.